Good morning, gorgeous. Yes, you. Welcome back to Rosie Rooted and Rising. I want you to settle in for a moment, wherever you are right now, driving, walking, getting ready for work, sitting in your kitchen with your coffee, or maybe finally taking a breath after carrying the weight of everybody else's needs all day long. I want you to really listen to me today. Because this conversation is not about what you know anymore, because you already know. You already felt it. You already recognized it. This episode is about something deeper, ladies. It's about what happens when you continue allowing things that are costing you your peace. So let's get into it. Today's episode is titled, What You Keep Allowing is Costing You. It's for the woman who is finally realizing that exhaustion is not always coming from responsibility. Sometimes it is coming from access. And as women who have lived a little longer, women who have raised children, supported families, carried careers, survived disappointments, rebuilt ourselves more than once, we learn something important eventually, right? Exhaustion is not always coming from work. Sometimes it is coming from what we continue entertaining after we already know better. And I think a lot of women are quietly sitting inside that reality right now. Not because they are weak, not because they are confused, but because making a final decision about people, patterns, or environments can feel incredibly uncomfortable, especially when you are used to being dependable, especially when you're used to being the strong one, the one people have benefited from your availability for years. See, there comes a point where your body starts responding to things before your mouth fully admits the truth. You start feeling tired all the time, irritated, mentally crowded, drained after conversations that should not have required that much energy. You start replaying interactions in your head, overthinking your responses, anticipating conflict before it even happens. And eventually you realize this is not just stress anymore. This is misalignment. And I think one of the hardest truths for high capacity women is to accept this. Sometimes the problem is not what happened to you. Sometimes the problem becomes what you continue allowing after you already recognize the pattern. This is a very grown realization. And let me say this carefully because I do not want this conversation to sound harsh. There is a difference between compassion and self abandonment. There is a difference between grace and access. There is a difference between helping someone and constantly sacrificing yourself to maintain a situation that has already shown you it's unhealthy. And many women over 50 are conditioned to normalize this behavior. We are taught to be accommodating, understanding, available, flexible, patient, and selfless. And listen, those qualities are beautiful in the right environment. But in the wrong environment, those same qualities become an invitation for people to overconsume you. That is the truth. And what makes it even harder is this. When you are capable, people assume you can handle more. When you are dependable, people assume you will continue showing up no matter how they treat you. When you are emotionally mature, people expect endless understanding from you while giving very little accountability in return. And after a while, you start carrying relationships, conversations, responsibilities, and emotional labor that were never supposed to sit entirely on your shoulders. I had to learn this the hard way myself. There was a season in my life where I was very clear about my boundaries. Very clear. I communicated them calmly, respectfully, directly. And the issue eventually stopped being communication. The issue became what I continued allowing after I had already communicated those boundaries. That is a different level of awareness. Because once somebody clearly understands your standards and continues ignoring them, now the question becomes, why are you still giving access? And that is not easy to sit with, because many times we stay connected to situations longer than we should because we are trying to avoid discomfort. We do not want conflict. We do not want guilt. We do not want to disappoint people. We do not want to be misunderstood. So instead of making a clean decision, we keep negotiating with ourselves. We answer the call anyway. We respond to the text anyway. We over explain anyway. We revisit conversations that already exhausted us anyway. And slowly, piece by piece, our peace starts disappearing. Not all at once, little by little. And one thing I have learned as a woman in this season of life is this: your nervous system will tell the truth before your mouth does. Your body knows. Your body knows when something feels unsafe. Your body knows when you are constantly bracing yourself emotionally. Your body knows when somebody's presence creates tension instead of peace. And some women are carrying so much emotional fatigue right now because they are constantly managing environments that no longer align with who they are becoming. You cannot heal while remaining fully connected to what keeps harming you. You cannot keep asking God for peace while continuously participating in chaos. And I know that statement may make some people uncomfortable, but maturity requires honesty, not performance, honesty. There comes a point where you have to stop saying, I'm just trying to be understanding, when deep down you are exhausted. There comes a point when you stop calling it patience, when really it has become avoidance. And I say that with compassion because I have lived it too. I know what it feels like to keep giving chances because you want to believe people will eventually respect what you clearly communicated. I know what it feels like to keep overextending yourself because being dependable became part of your identity. I know what it feels like to carry things quietly because you do not want to seem difficult or harsh or selfish. But one thing age and experience will teach you is this: peace requires participation too. Not just prayer, participation. You have to participate in your own peace. You have to make decisions that support it. You have to stop reopening doors that should remain closed. You have to stop giving unlimited access to people who repeatedly mishandle your presence. And that does not make you bitter. It makes you responsible for your own well being. There is a scripture that kept sitting in my spirit while preparing for this episode. Galatians 6:7 says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And I want to look at that differently for a moment because this is not just about people. This is also about us. What are we continuing to water? What are we continuing to feed? What are we continuing to participate in? Because whatever continues receiving your energy continues growing. And sometimes we keep praying for change while still feeding the exact cycle that is draining us. That is a hard truth, but it is a freeing truth too, because it means you have more power than you think. You may not control other people, but you do control access. You control participation. You control proximity. You control whether you continue sitting in environments that keep costing you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And I think many women need permission to understand this. You are allowed to change access. You are allowed to stop carrying people. You are allowed to protect your environment. You are allowed to say, "This no longer works for me," without writing a 10-page explanation, without defending yourself endlessly, without shrinking your needs to make other people more comfortable. One of the biggest shifts that happens as we mature is realization. Not everyone is entitled to unlimited versions of you. Not everybody deserves continued access simply because they had historical access. And that is difficult for women who have nurturing hearts, because nurturing women naturally want to help. We naturally want to understand. We naturally want to smooth things over. But there is a difference between helping someone and continuously volunteering yourself for emotional depletion. That lesson changed me. And let me tell you something else. Some women are not tired because they are doing too much. Some women are tired because they are emotionally connected to too much. There is a difference. You can handle responsibility. You have handled responsibility your entire life. But unresolved tension, constant emotional disruption, repeated disrespect, mental clutter, unclear boundaries, that will wear you down faster than any work ever will. And I think we need to normalize talking about that honestly, especially for women over 50, because by now many of us are no longer interested in performing strength while privately falling apart. We want peace for real, not the appearance of peace, real peace. The kind where your body relaxes again, the kind where your mind is not constantly racing, the kind where you stop replaying conversations in your head at night, the kind where you are not always anticipating somebody else's reaction. And achieving that kind of peace sometimes requires uncomfortable decisions. Not dramatic decisions, just honest ones. Sometimes alignments looks very quiet. It looks like responding less, explaining less, distancing yourself, changing routines, protecting your time, protecting your energy, and stopping access. And yes, sometimes people will misunderstand when you start changing, especially people who benefited from the old version of you. But hear me carefully, ladies. You cannot build a peaceful life without constantly betraying yourself to maintain other people's comforts. At some point, you have to choose. And choosing yourself does not mean becoming selfish. It means becoming honest about your limits, about your needs, about what your spirit can no longer tolerate. And one thing I have learned in this stage of my life is this: boundaries without changed behavior are only suggestions. That one took me a while to learn, because saying something is one thing, living it another. Anybody can say, "I'm done," but alignment is when your behavior finally matches your words. Alignment is when you stop reopening the same door, when you stop negotiating with what already disrupted your peace repeatedly. Is when your life starts reflecting what you claimed you wanted. And that kind of growth is not loud. It is steady, intentional, grounded. You stop chasing explanations. You stop forcing understanding. You stop trying to manage everybody else's perception of your decisions. And instead, you protect your peace quietly. That is growth too. Not dramatic growth, mature growth. And maybe that is where you are right now. Maybe you are sitting with the realization that something in your life has been costing you more than you wanted to admit. Maybe it is a relationship. Maybe it's an environment. Maybe it's a pattern inside yourself. Maybe you keep overgiving because it feels uncomfortable to disappoint people. Maybe you keep rescuing people because it feels strange when you let adults carry their own responsibilities. Maybe you keep explaining yourself because you are hoping somebody will finally validate your position. But gorgeous, peace does not come from convincing people. Peace comes from no longer abandoning yourself. That is the lesson. And once you fully understand that, you start moving differently. Not colder, not harder, just wiser. You stop volunteering yourself for unnecessary suffering. You stop carrying emotional weight that was never assigned to you. You stop confusing access with love. And you finally understand that protecting yourself is not cruelty, it is stewardship. And I think more women need to hear that, especially women who spent decades being everything for everybody else. You deserve peace too, sweetie. Real peace. Not temporary relief, not avoidance, not silence while resentment grows underneath, but real peace. And sometime real peace begins with one honest decision. This can no longer continue in this way. That decision changes everything. If today's episode resonated with you, leave a review and share it with another woman who's rising or someone in your life who needs this conversation. Follow the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you're listening on YouTube, like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next on Rosie, Rooted and Rising. And if this episode spoke to you, leave me a comment and tell me, what is something you know you can no longer keep allowing in your life? Until next time, sis y hermana, stay rooted, stay blessed, and keep rising. New episodes every Monday morning.